I had a coach in high school, coached me, I think, in 8th grade, 9th, 10th, and 12th, because he moved up as I was getting older. Coach Vidadich, and he had a phrase that he liked to use from time to time when he was working with us. And we had several knuckleheads on our team, so it's an appropriate choice, because this acronym speaks to not only basketball, but life. And he would say to us that the key is KISS, not the band, but spelled the same, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. When we got our heads all mixed up in basketball strategy. But he also said, hey guys, if you ever get a date, that's not a bad idea either. Don't try to do anything foolish, because you don't know what you're doing. And he was right. That made me think of movies and how convoluted their plots are sometimes. And I thought of 3 good movies that have a complicated plot. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you've not. The first one is Christopher Nolan's Inception. And if this is a spoiler, I mean, come on, they've been out a while. In Inception, the whole thing is that people are having dreams within their dreams. And so the characters don't always know, is this my dream, or my dream within my dream, or am I actually awake? And that's the whole mystery that unfolds as you're going on. Another one that has one of these tricks to it, one of these complications, is Fight Club. That's been out quite a while. And in that whole movie, there's a character that is talking and interacting and doing things that doesn't actually exist. And that's the twist you find at the end. Brad Pitt is playing a character, Tyler Durden, who's only in the protagonist, Ed Norton's character's imagination. Lastly, another one that I thought of is Blade Runner. And Blade Runner has that futuristic stuff going on, but the mystery there is, what is life? If a robot is so close to a human being that you can barely tell them apart, aren't they really alive too? And that is what they wrestle with. When it works, a movie that's got a complicated plot and twists and turns and whatnot, it's brilliant. But for every one of these that work, there's a Cloud Atlas or a Vanilla Sky or one of these other ambitious movies with a convoluted plot. And I've seen both. I didn't even finish Cloud Atlas. I started and I was like, okay, I give up. I don't know what's going on. And that kind of thing. Well, today, we're not going to try to match Inception. There's no text within the text going on here. We are going to keep it simple. Not because we're stupid, but because this is an important enough message and concept that we want to make sure that we get it on the straight and don't have any misconceptions. So that is, of course, the famous Romans 6:23. So let's start with the first phrase. So given how concise this sentence is, right? It's one sentence and it's fairly short. Summing it up as it does the gospel. This is a summation of the gospel very eloquently, very precisely, just as John 3:16 is. One of the reasons we love John 3:16 is because it's the gospel in a nutshell. It sums it up beautifully. You can remember it. You can tell somebody it. It's pretty straightforward. Ephesians 2:8-10 are similar, a little bit longer, but also pretty straightforward. So it's going to benefit us to zoom in here very closely. And we're going to look at each and every piece of this verse, break it up into 14 pieces actually. And this is the first one, for the wages. So let's focus on the wages. Our first point in understanding the gospel is that it is God's response to something we have earned. The gospel does not solve circumstances beyond our control. The gospel is not solving a coincidence or a case of bad luck. Rather, it is God's response to the correct and proper payout of that which is due. So, to start, we note that God is not solving a miscarriage of justice. Our world is full of those, right? Miscarriages of justice all over the place. We're forever trying to solve them, to remedy them, to stop them from happening. But that is not what the gospel is. Rather, God's plan and its fulfillment will overcome what should have happened, what was proper and fitting. The wages of sin. How were wages earned? By sin. The definition of sin is quite simple enough. It is rebellion against God. Now, this would include the entirety of things we readily recognize as evil or wicked. Often when we think of sin, that's what pops into our mind first. Things like murder and rape and theft and hatred and greed. But sin also includes those things that are likely legal in human society, and some of them even celebrated, yet contrary to the nature of God. Things like fornication and lust, gossip and slander, blasphemy and idolatry, rage, pride, selfishness, and all of the like. When we put those together, such behaviors have typified the human experience to greater or lesser extent. All people have participated in some of them, some of the time. So all have wages coming, even if the size of the charge in our individual account may vary. For the wages of sin is. You didn't know I was going to break it down that much, but all we need here is. The is might seem not all that important, but it plays its part. Rather than the wages of sin was, that might indicate the status quo has changed. This is not what it is anymore, but it was. No, it still is. Maybe the problem's been resolved. No, it still is. And it's also not will be, because will be offers us hope that it can be averted, right? We talk about crises that are coming, that might happen, threats to the environment or democracy or whatever, and some of those may not happen. Maybe they can be averted if choices are different than otherwise. But that's not what this is. This is. It makes it clear to us that the wages of sin are a set payment, not one in flux, not one that changes. This is an ongoing issue of the present, not the past, and not the hypothetical future. The wages of sin is, and here is, of course, the hammer, death. That's an unwelcome paycheck. If you remember back to the first paycheck you ever received, and I think none of us are old enough to have had a paycheck before the Social Security Administration, right? So I think we all got that first paycheck and looked at it and said, who's FICA and why are they taking so much of my money, right? State, federal, local, FICA, you did that and said, whoa, 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 suddenly my $4.25 an hour is not very much, or my $6.15 or whatever it was that you made. Ruining your teenage hopes of how simple life was going to be, right? That was one of those reality checks. This is more of a buzzkill than that. This is the end of the party. Death is final. Death is serious business. There's no wiggle room here, no bargaining, no deal making. Death is not only the end result of sin when the bill comes due, it's also the toll collected along the way, as all sin leads inevitably to the harbingers of death, to unhealthiness and loss and decay. The situation as described here is bleak. Left to our own to have justice play out and our just punishment delivered to us is a path of doom. Thankfully, we've got another part of speech here. We've got a comma, not a period. And that's a big help. Because the next word after the comma is but. Some of us grew up with Schoolhouse Rock and remember the conjunction junction, right? Maybe? Yes? Kathy and I, at least. Dan, you with me? All right, conjunction junction, what's your function? Come on. Somebody has to have seen that, or your grandkids were watching it. Those of us who grew up with that love conjunctions because they made it sound so much fun. From the standpoint of human history, this but is most welcome. Because without it, we have, for the wages of sin is death, period. And that's bad. If the story were to end there, this life would be all that we have. Beyond it, there would be hopelessness. And making this life better, about all we could do would be incremental change. Thanks be to God, because there was never any question of leaving humanity in a state of hopelessness. Because God is God, God can do something about death's grip on sinful humanity. The question then becomes, what? What did God do? The gift. There is an unexpected change. Death was the wage of sin. Our experience in life has taught us not to expect a gift to be the solution to a problem caused by justice being properly administered. We do not expect judges to hand out gifts to guilty defendants, right? I mean, that's not the way that works, unless you're watching one of those weird reality shows where the judge isn't a real judge and the people are arguing about nonsense. But in the real world, judgments do not equal gifts. As we mentioned earlier, there's nothing unjust about death resulting from sin. So a gift must be something else other than the law being applied as expected. So note this well. The solution to humanity's chosen rebellion against God is a gift. We will not, we cannot earn our way out of the hole that we've dug for ourselves, whether that is us individually or humanity collectively. Striving harder will not work. Self-denial won't work. Zeal won't work. Even martyrdom won't work. A gift is the answer, only a gift. Now, interestingly, Romans 6:23 doesn't contain the word grace in it. But this entire second phrase is dripping with that concept. What else could a gift in response to rebellion against God be other than grace? Ephesians 2:8 and 10 has a tighter focus on the role of grace, really spelling it out. Whereas John 3:16 turns the spotlight onto God's motivation for being graciousness, his love for the world. No matter how you slice it, the gospel story cannot be fully told without grace as a centerpiece. The gift of God. To those unfamiliar with the gospel, this ought to be shocking for several reasons. Number one, God is the one who made the rules and the one who enforces them. Why would God respond to violations of them by giving a gift to the rule breakers? Where do we ever see that? When is it that the principal rewards the disobedient students? That's not the way it works. Secondly, God is holy. H-O-L-Y. Our sin is not just a violation of some standard that God chose to create out of, because it sounded cool. it's much more than that. It is a reflection of the very nature of God. And so every sin is a personal affront to God. On the flip side, while it is shocking that God would be willing to offer a gift in response to humanity's earned wage of death, that ought to be shocking to us. It is entirely logical that God could do so. Because who else would? Who else could? All of humanity is in this together. We can't help each other because we can't help ourselves. Outside of humanity, what power is there that could affect death? Only God, and God alone. So the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God, here we go again, here comes is again, and the second time it's equally important. God was willing to offer a gift, and that offer is still on the table. We don't have to, it's not going to expire in the next 29 minutes and the countdown happening like one of those things that they're trying to get you to do on Black Friday sales or whatever. The gift of God is, not was or will be, this remains in effect, not just for the present, but for the entirety of human history from Eden to the last judgment. In a world of uncertainty and change, God's offer to us remains. It cannot be withdrawn, amended, tainted, superseded, or thwarted in any way. This is God's will, and it will stand. So the gift of God is what? Right? The wages of sin were death. What is the gift of God in response? Well, it's eternal. Nothing that we make or mend in this world is permanent. Ancient monuments like the pyramids or the Colosseums are impressive to us because some of them they're still there. But the civilization that built them crumbled and fell into nothingness long ago. What God is doing, his gift in response to the just wages of sin, condemning humanity to death, is for all time. To receive this gift is to be changed permanently in this life and the next. And here it is, your weekly geek reference to pop culture, because you get one. It's the way it is. In the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, two of the most popular movies of all time, by the way, so it's not like a niche thing, the villain Thanos snaps away half of all life in the universe. In the sequel, Endgame, the team of heroes use a time heist, time travel makes it easier, and they manage to reverse his plan 5 years later, bringing all of that life back. Even though he was bragging, I am inevitable. Well, that's a comic book. Here in reality, what God has accomplished cannot be undone. Who could overcome God to change what God has done? Who could take away a gift that God has made available? And once accepted, how could it be taken back? Now, the Apostle Paul will delve into that poetically and illustrate it when we get to Romans 8, a beautiful passage that we will enjoy when we get there. For now, it suffices to say that God's gift is eternal. But eternal what? Right? Not everything would you want eternally. Eternal life. Of all the things that could be given eternally, this has got to be at the top of the list, right? Life is both foundational and essential. Without it, what is the value of a gift if we're not around to enjoy it? Life is also the opposite of death. So Paul here is contrasting a set of opposites. He gave us the wages and the gift, and now he's giving us death turning to life. Thus, God's gift to sinners is to remove the penalty of death that they have earned and replace it with life. Given that we are alive right now, right? The previous modifier, eternal, reminds us that the quantity of life offered by God is exceptional. Not only that, the prepositional phrase that is to follow life, and we're on our way to looking at it, will illuminate the unparalleled quality of the life contained in God's gift. Again, God is the original giver of life, all life in the universe. God alone can offer life as a gift to those who need it. And all of humanity has this need. Whoops. Sorry, I gotta. All right. The gift of eternal life. We had a conjunction, now we've got a preposition because these matter here. But note the footnote says, or through, in or through. The Greek preposition that we're translating here means either one of them, depending on the context. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's through. But both of those meanings are absolutely true here. The gift of eternal life is both in and through the same person. So whichever of them helps you understand or explain this to someone better, go ahead and use it. They're both perfectly acceptable and perfectly orthodox thoughts. In or through. The answer to the question, in or through who, will offer us three names or titles for the same person, each of which will deepen our understanding. The first is Christ. That's a royal title. It means the anointed one, the one that was prophesied of old to rescue Israel and usher in a new kingdom. The Advent narratives of Luke and Matthew, which of course we're beginning the season next week, highlight this connection to the Davidic dynasty and the expectations of deliverance, a deliverance that the people believed would exceed that of the Exodus from Egypt. That he is the Christ, the anointed one, also reminds us that this was God's plan from the very beginning. He connected it to the prophets and the promises of God to King David. So not only is the one that the gift is in and through the Christ, his name is Jesus. The name given to Joseph by an angel of the Lord, as Matthew 1:21 tells us, because he will save his people from their sins. Jesus is the Greek version of the popular Hebrew name Joshua, both of which we pronounce and spell with a J in modern English. The Greeks and Latins used an I, the Hebrews a yod, which is more or less our Y. Pronunciation history aside, the name, in whichever language, meant the Lord saves. And that's Lord with those capital L-O-R-D that you see in the Old Testament. That is the God of Abraham, the one who told Moses to call him I am, in Hebrew pronounced more or less as Yahweh. He saves. God saves his people. It's the central theme of the Scriptures. In that respect, the name Jesus is a culmination of the work of God to save his people in generations past. It's the perfect name for him. When it comes to Jesus, that name is literally accurate because as the Son of God, Jesus is as much Yahweh as the Father and the Spirit. He too can say, I am. And of course, in the Gospel of John, he does so repeatedly. To save was the very purpose of the incarnation. Of course, we know much more about Jesus than a fitting name. We know about his teaching, which amazes and convicts to this day. We know about his miracles, which were legendary, his compassion to the lost and forgotten that was astounding, and his suffering that was incomparable. We know that it ended in a resurrection from the grave and victory, and an ascension into heaven shortly after. While some people have dangerous misconceptions about who Jesus is or what he accomplished, to say that our promised gift of eternal life is in or through Jesus is as comforting and encouraging a place as it possibly could be. Our Lord. Lastly, this one sentence summary of the gospel will end on a high note, connecting God's gift of eternal life to Jesus Christ, who not only is the fulcrum of history, but more than that, has become our Lord. Because our hope and faith rests in and through him. In other places, Paul will declare Jesus to be our brother. Later on in Romans even. And tell us we have the right to call the Father Abba. In English, the equivalent of daddy. Again, we're getting there. But we also need to be clear that God is the judge of the living and the dead. God is the maker of heaven and earth, the unchallenged king of the universe. And yes, along with being our hero, our brother, and our friend, Jesus Christ is our Lord. 3 thoughts of application. Of course, each of these are longer than the verse that we're summarizing, but I'm doing my best. Number 1, the gospel is more important than any other truth a person can learn about and believe by faith. It can be shared in one sentence. That's amazing. Secondly, the gospel is a God-created contrast between death earned by sin and life given as a gift of grace. Earned death versus a gift of grace, a gift of life. Thirdly, the name of Jesus means the Lord saves. His lineage gives him the right to rule, and he is indeed our Lord.